Welcome to our program, A C-Level View on the Future of Work After COVID-19. Today we will explore the ways in which workforce strategy and talent management have been irreparably changed by the combined impact of the pandemic and other macro forces, such as the rise of digitization, ever-changing employee expectations, and bridging the skills gap. We will be taking questions about halfway through the program. Please use the Q&A function to enter your questions anytime during the session, and we'll respond to as many questions as possible. Our moderator today will be the Adecco Group's Talent Solutions Business Unit Chief Marketing Officer, Michelle Anthony. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Honesty, and hello and welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you today and to be moderating what promises to be a very engaging and educating conversation on the future of work. I'm joined by four esteemed leaders: Alain Dehaze, CEO of the Adecco Group; Antonio Calco Labruzzo, Global Head of Human Resources at Takeda Pharmaceuticals; Maryjo Charbonnier, CHRO at Wolters Kluwer; and Kathleen Weslock, CHRO and CPO at Avalara. To get us started, I think perhaps over to you, Alain, for a CEO's point of view on some of the trends and developments that you're seeing that are currently shaping the world of work.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for inviting me to be present to this very interesting panel here from Zurich. Now, coming back to your questions, basically there are three key trends we are seeing. The first one is that we are all living in a so-called VUCA world, and especially during the last 12 months, we have been living, and all customers have been living in a very volatile, unpredictable, complex and ambiguous world. And we have seen also that, the COVID situation has really amplified and accelerated that kind of environment we are in. The second is we also accelerated by the COVID is the acceleration of the technology deployment. And with the technology deployment, it means that many companies, but also many individuals had to really reinvent themselves very fast. I give you one example. Last year, during the month of April and May, 30,000 or 34,000 colleagues were working from a remote location, helping or at that time 100,000 customers to cope with the situation, but also to help or almost 400,000 associates working from them by that time. And so this situation is accelerating the technology deployment, but also with the technology deployment, the need for digitalization, the need for reskilling, upskilling of the people. And the third trends I see, it has starting during the COVID, but it is here to stay, is what we call the new way of work. And it starts with the hybrid work. We have made different studies, and we see that going forward, people will work 50% on premise, 50% in a remote way. Whatever the country, whatever their position, I think this new way of work is here to stay, which means that it will have impact the way we measure productivity, the way we measure performance. It's what we call the end of the 9 to 5 hours. But it requires also different type of leadership, because people are not used to manage, motivate, engage a remote workforce. And it means that we will have to really increase our emotional intelligence. And we have seen that during the crisis. So we interviewed 8,000 people, and 28% of them said that they were suffering some kind of mental illness, isolation problems, 28%. And these statistics is also confirmed by other study I have lived. But what is even more worrying is that from these people, only tell us that 10% of their managers have been able to cope with the situation and to support them in this situation. So only 1 out of 10 manager was able to cope with this situation of mental illness, isolation, and so on. So going forward, there will be a huge need to adapt, to reskill ourselves, not only in the hardcore capabilities, but also on the soft side. That's in a nutshell, Michelle.
Thank you, Alain, and profound changes indeed. And perhaps our HR leaders would agree that the HR function is bearing a disproportionate amount of that burden or that change inside of companies. So I'd love to do a lightning round with each of our three HR leaders that we have with us. Starting with you, Maryjo, could you just tell us a little bit about the business that Wolters Kluwer is in and how your business has been changed? What profound ways has it changed as a result of COVID-19?
Sure. So my name is Maryjo Charbonnier. I'm the CHRO of Wolters Kluwer. We're a Dutch-based company. We sell 4.6 billion in revenue of software services and information to lawyers, doctors, accountants, and health professionals. We have 19,000 employees in 46 countries. And during the pandemic, just a year ago, this past week, we shifted 95% of them to work from home. We still have a fair bit, that small group of employees in the office are considered essential services, mostly supporting our legal and regulatory businesses and are deemed essential to the functioning of the US court system. So we haven't, like others, had big amounts of our workforce still in the office, but enough to sort of have to think through both sets of things. How do we manage a virtual workforce? How do we keep those that are safe in the office? And I would say, the big way is that, we're largely a tech and information company. I don't remember ever speaking before about health and safety a lot at the executive level. And now it's a sort of daily focus. We certainly were focused on certain things like wellness and other things more generally. But I would say the big shift is health and safety and some of the mental well-being issues that Alain mentioned have really become front and center in our C-suite agenda.
Indeed, thank you. And Antonio, how about you and Takeda?
Hi, I'm Michelle and everyone. Thanks for having me here. A few words on me. Antonio Calco Labruzzo, originally Italian, as you can understand, both by my name and my accent. Global head of HR for TBS, Takeda. We are talking about 30,000 people, 50,000 people, around the world, 30 billions revenues, present in 80 countries across the world, and we are a pharmaceutical company, one of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies. Of course, as I can definitely echo what has been said so far, and a lot of the words that has been already used in these first minutes really resonate with us very much. Of course, COVID, it's a huge disruption for each and every business, including pharma, from different perspective, as you can imagine, because it's changing the way we work, but also it's changing. It's putting us on the lead in terms of trying to solve it as well, as you can imagine. In terms of what changes we have seen in the last 12 months or so, I can start from something we have done in the past months. We launched 2 different surveys in our organization, and we asked our people how did they feel, first of all, and what they do expect for the future, especially when we talk about future of work. And we called the first one Care Survey, the second one Explore Survey, which are both words that have been used already in this conference today. And that's basically through those 2 words what I see is the main challenge and the main changes we're facing today. We are understanding how important it is to care about our people, I care about patients, which is the first priority for our organization, and how important it is for us now, especially if I think at an HR point of view, to explore new ways of working. So I was speaking with some colleagues few days ago, and for the first time in a bunch of years, I would say, since when I work, we are starting projects that we never done before. We are not reusing projects we have done somewhere else and try to improve or implement something. We are really exploring a new field, and that's at the same time as always interesting, exciting, but also scary in a way. So we really need to think about.
Yeah, indeed, new frontier for sure for all of us, especially those of us in HR. So thank you, Antonio. And Kathleen, how about you and Avalara?
Good morning, everyone from Seattle. I started the pandemic living and working in Philadelphia for a lithium mining company, which, as you may imagine, as Maryjo referred to, health and safety is at the core of everything a mining company does, particularly when you are mining lithium in the hills of Argentina. So mid-pandemic, I switched to Avalara, which is a tech company, 3,500 employees, very global. And what we do is tax compliance. It doesn't sound, it doesn't come top of mind when you think about tax compliance, but there's two things in life that really matter, right? Tax and death, you know what's gonna happen. So we have a robust business, filing taxes all around the globe, from fiscal rep, European, VAT, et cetera, et cetera. We have 3,500 employees, mainly here in Seattle. It is a high-tech company. It is very tech. And so for us, it was really easy to go virtual in a matter of seconds. We're very professional, highly educated, and everyone is very tech savvy. So for Avalara, we still continue to be working remote. We will be remote for the foreseeable future. But as my colleagues have referred to, much of my time is spent worrying and concerned for our employees and making sure that they have the tools, the resources, and the empathy that they need to survive through this crisis. Our CEO is a high growth executive and very empathetic. So every call starts and ends with questions, concerns about how everyone is doing. So to me, like Alain said, it starts at the top. And at Avalara, we take our cues from our CEO, who says to all of us on a daily basis, please lead with empathy.
Awesome. So starting back at the top then, back to Alain. From a CEO's perspective, Alain, what are the expectations for the months ahead as you see them?
Regarding the perspective, so what we are all looking at today is vaccination and the vaccination rate. And with the vaccination rate, you will see, or we expect to see a rebound of the different economies, the mobility, and the back at work from everybody. But we expect the recovery to be still bumpy and non-linear. So because we see that different countries are at a different stage. We even see that if the US is starting to rebound, we see that in Europe, countries are still in a second or even expecting a third or a fourth wave of lockdown. So we are absolutely not out. And we see also governments now starting to look at how they will synchronize the decrease of the support, because a lot of governments have provided financially support scheme regarding unemployment. And we see a lot of governments trying to synchronize the decrease of the support with the rebound of the recovery. But we expect also a big questions regarding the talent, because in this rebound, we will see companies looking at different type of skills, potentially also looking at different of talent. So this topic of workforce transformation is huge, and especially with LHH, but also with General Assembly, we are hearing that every day. All our customers are looking on how they can transform themselves, and the transformation is not really about digitization. The transformation is mainly about people, about talent, and how to get the right skills in the workforce. And do I have to separate part of the workforce and rehire, or should I rebuild this, upskill, reskill this? Because the COVID has accelerated many disruption and transformation. Best example is the auto industry. So we are going very fast from classical fossil-driven engine to electrified vehicles. So it means that this industry are looking now for system engineer and not more electrician or mechanician and so on. They are looking for mechatronician and so on. And in a lot of industries, that's the same. And so that's the hot topic. And the only advice I can provide is make sure you have a vision on where you want to go with your workforce, with the skills that you need, and so that you can design a plan on how to get there. And for sure, we are here to help with LHH, with Modis, with General Assembly, and so on. But I see still today a lot of our customers not having a clear vision where the skills need is going. And I would encourage everybody to do this. This is my final advice about the expectation looking at the future.
No, it's excellent advice. And I think HR leaders play a key role in leading their organization, whether it's a return to workplace sort of policy or whether it's strategies around closing the skills gap. And so, Maryjo, I know you've got a great analogy here, a soup to bread analogy on how you've approached this within your organization. So over to you to talk a bit about your approach to HR policy and strategy here.
Yeah, sure. So, I think one of the biggest changes for the HR team is having to think differently about shelf life of product during this. Usually we struggle to get investment. So when we get money to invest in changing something, we want to build it to last. And that's soup, right? It has a shelf life of over a year. But we're in a world where you really have to almost think you're a bread producer. You got 2 to 3 week shelf life. So if we're writing FAQs on vaccines, we're writing them for what we know right now and to get answers out now. And we know we're going to have to come back and revisit that. So I think that's been a huge change to take the HR team through to get faster and more agile. We've been focused on our sort of workforce strategy to build off of Alain's point was really put resiliency at the center of what we're doing. And then we have 3 supporting planks right now. One is safe, healthy, and well. The second one is productive. And that's the one we're keeping our eye on for the long term, because I think what we know everyone's kind of doing the job right now, but the question is innovation going to keep coming at the same rate? And so we've been focused on that, as well as connected and engaged, that sense that Alain talked about, and some of the other panelists here, about making sure that employees don't feel so lonely and isolated, and finding creative ways to continue to create those points of connection. So that's been our 3-part strategy, and then working through that in ways that kind of, we've got a cycle going on of things that we're launching that are kind of good enough to go, not good enough to be built to last for forever, as we might have thought pre-pandemic.
Super, thank you for sharing that. And sticking with food analogies, Kathleen, I think you've got one about making lemonade out of lemons. If you'd like to share that.
So when I think about the pandemic, we couldn't have been thrown a more difficult group of lemons. So the way I look at it is, how do we take the lemons that we were thrown and turn it into lemonade? I do it by 3 ways. 1, I look to the future, I look to the present, and then I look to the past. Let's talk about the future. As Alain talked about, the world of work is absolutely transforming, and that 4th industrial revolution is finally here. We are fortunate. We had a great year. We are in a business that frankly, benefited from people staying at home, right? Our clients are online retailers and they need someone to do their taxes in a digital kind of way. But having said that, we also learned some very important lessons about how to work from home. You know, Alain talked about it. Cornell University also did some very interesting research on the future of work. And I use that as kind of my North Star when I thought about what our plans would be for going back to work. And, you know, how do we continue to meet our clients' needs? We're a tech company, so ideation, collaboration, working in the office is really important to us. That's where we come up with the next big idea. Very clever people, very thoughtful people, and also work at Avalara is fun. We have a premium on fun. The headquarters in every location has a tiki bar in it. Tiki bar is a kind of a Polynesian theme that sticks with us from our very beginning. So being in the office and having fun, collaborating, ideation is really important to us. But our employees did get used to working from home. So again, how do we blend the needs? So the future, yes, much more remote digitalization. We're already there. The present, taking care of our employee needs. And then also learning from the past. Let's not forget, it was only in 2013 when Marissa Mayer and Yahoo came out with that memo where they demanded all their employees come back to work because they had been working virtually and in their humble opinion, it didn't work. So they called everyone to come back into the office. It was not executed well, with all due respect. The HR leader wrote a memo for Marissa and it just went really, really badly. So learning from the past as to how you do call your employees back to work and get them to come back is really important, that we learn the lessons of the past. And I do remember it wasn't only Yahoo who called their people back, it was IBM, it was Bank of America and Aetna, all really turned on a dime and got their employees to come back. And we can learn lessons from how they did that as we re-enter, you know, from a remote workforce back to an in-premise workforce.
Yeah, and we'll come back to sort of workforce fluidity in just a minute, because I think everyone has a lot to contribute there as well. Antonio, over to you to talk just a little bit. I know Alain talked a bit about sort of, you know, future fit, right, workforces and making sure you have clarity around where it is the organization needs to go. I was super impressed when you shared with me the Takeda story, the level of clarity you have around your new corporate philosophy. Would love for you to share that story with our audience.
Yeah, definitely, with great pleasure. So at Takeda, we very recently revamped our corporate philosophy. It's in continuity with the philosophy of a company that is more than 250 years old. But at the same time, we wanted to really custom fit with what and where we're living today. So we, at the end, identified what we call 5 priorities, or 3 priorities plus 2. We have the 3P, which is people, patient at first, people and planet, and then the 2Ds, digital and data. And around that, we shaped everything that we do, and we give also priorities to our business decision on a daily basis. As TBS, for example, we clearly identified what are the main skill and capabilities we will need for the future. And we identified that even before pandemic, but like enough or good enough, we discovered through the pandemic that it was the right direction, and actually it accelerated because we pointed on 4 different directions, which are business partnering, change management, process excellence, digital and agile championship. And those are clearly the areas in which we want to, and we are strongly investing in order to build our next generation capabilities. Of course, through the pandemic, that, as I said before, accelerated a lot the journey. And of course, we put a lot of other efforts around this direction. But of course, it's even more visible to every one of us why we should now think about how the future workforce will look like, because we will definitely get there. And if we want to stay ahead of the curve and we want to be ready for whatever it's coming, we definitely have to go in that direction. And that has given also, we, as I said before, we run the care survey, and that has given us a very good feedback from the people in terms of clarity on where are we going, what are we investing on, and what the direction we are taking. I can definitely echo what Alain was saying before. It's really important to, and we are touching in our organization, to give a vision to the people also what will count in the next 3 to 5 years. Probably, maybe it won't be, I can definitely listen to Maryjo as well. Maybe it's not going to be 3 to 5, it's going to be 2 to 3. That's the shift and the change we are looking at, but that's definitely important. And also taking from Kathleen the view on the past and the lesson learned from other organizations. That's something we are talking about today, as I guess everyone, what the future of work will look like, hybrid forms, and that's the result of our Explore survey as well. And just a few days ago, I was having a meeting with some leader in my organization, and we wanted to shift the way of looking at it, and that's also a reflection that I share here also for further exploring. Not only talking about do we work from home, do we work from the office, but why we do have to work from home, or we can work from home, and for what and why we have to work from the office. And last but not least, what's the impact in the midterm is in terms of our talent pipeline? Give an example, and then I close my piece on this. Let's imagine we start hiring people from very different location, because we say, and that's, by the way, not necessarily the direction we are going, and we said there is not one size fit all. But let's say an organization decide to go fully virtual and start hiring people everywhere in the world, in the countries, and it becomes location agnostic. And then tomorrow we discovered that collaboration needs presence. And then you want to have people collaborating and you cannot, or even in the career plan and in the career path of people, you discover that you want to move them in positions in which collaboration is more needed, but they cannot be located in the same office. Those are all questions we should ask ourselves today when we look at the future of our work, and that's what we are trying to do.
Super, thank you, Antonio. And I think that lends itself nicely to this sort of next section, this next topic, and there's some great questions coming in about returning to work, the fluidity of the workforce. So Alain, if you could just sort of frame initially this conversation, what are some of the main challenges that you see in the world of work going forward?
I think I've already mentioned it regarding the talent and so on. But what perhaps I would like to rebound is on the last point of Antonio. I think that's the right question to raise. Why should we go back to the office? And we started to look at this, and if Antonio is speaking about the 5 Ps, we will speak about the 3 Cs. And one is indeed the one you have mentioned it. You come back to the office to collaborate, because collaborations needs presence, Antonio has said. And so if today we have made study, we have looked at our real estate, and today 70% of the space is dedicated to work and 30% to collaborations. And I was almost extreme to say, oh, let's go for 70% collaboration and 30% work. And finally, we won't go there, but we will go probably to between 40 and 50% of the space dedicated to collaboration, and the other part to work, because people won't come anymore to the office to do something they can do at home or in a remote way with much more convenience, avoiding the traffic, the mobility hassle, and so on. So that's the first C. The second is about culture, and to really nurture, to transmit your culture. you need physical presence. You need, it's like in a family, you need this famous family gathering to celebrate things, but it is also the way to propagate your values, the way you think, you act, you don't act together. So the second C is culture. And the third C, which is also very important, is coaching. And especially when you have new colleagues, I can tell you, I have 1 or 4 child having joined a new company with a fully online onboarding and so on. It's not easy for new colleagues to onboard in a 100% digital way. In fact, it is impossible, and it is impossible for new onboarding, but also for performance coaching. Because if you have salespeople and you want to coach a salespeople, you can do it digitally, but it is much more difficult. So that's why how we see this back to work, giving purpose for why we are going back to work. So it means that we will change our real estate. It means that we will adapt our philosophy. By the way, I can give you some insider news, Michel, but we will go, we have made study, and we will request people, for the one who are not really customer facing and so on, but for the one being at the office, we will ask them to be at least 2 days per week at the office, 2 days per week, and on average 50% during the year. And on top of this, we will ask the people to be collectively present. So in team, not that everybody has to be at the same time, but by team, the team leader will have to organize this rhythm, because again, you cannot nurture the culture, the collaboration, and the coaching if you are not present at the same time. So that's the way we intend to come back to work.
Super, thank you. I love the C's, the simplicity of it. It really resonates with me. So thank you for that framework, Alain. And I know, Maryjo, you and your team have thought through quite a bit on how do you bring, the team back to the workplace. So would love for you to share some of your thinking and sort of practical advice that you have and the data that you have from your organization on how to come back to the workplace.
Sure. So thanks for that, Michelle. So like many of you, we have a back to office plan that requires certain conditions to be met in terms of the pandemic, in terms of safety, case rates, those types of things. We'll stagger people back 25% to 50% density. But that really wasn't the hard thing to think through, right? I think everyone has learned to some degree, they like being at home, they don't like being at home, and how were we going to manage a new era of flexibility? And I would say a new era of workforce analytics. For example, at Wolters Kluwer in the US pre-pandemic, while we were tracking who was working fully remote, I don't think we looked at the stat. And as we shifted out to the office, we realized, 30% of our US workforce is already working fully remote, less than 10 in Europe, less than 10% in APAC. So we've seen, sort of the challenges that Alain was talking about of shifting to a truly digital workforce management have a disparate impact given your starting point. But one of the things I really believe is nobody worries about our we till we take care of their me. And if we think about transitioning back to the workforce, people want to know what's going to happen to me, and we'll really have to take care of their me issue. So in the US, we piloted, we launched it in the fall. We educated managers about all of our flex work options, fully remote, intermittent remote, compressed work week. We educated managers, then we launched it using Workday to our workforce, and we allowed them to submit, to say, I don't know when we're coming back, but when we come back, how do you want to come back? What's your me issue? Managers had a chance in divisions to look across those requests to sort of sequence, if I have a whole customer group that's coming in that wants to be fully remote, does that make sense for my business? Some divisions said, look, for software engineers, we really think with agile teams, 2 days a week out of the office, 3 days in, and they set those standards in advance so that as they went back to confirm to employees sort of their me requests. So this is all hot off the press. I told Michelle I have the data. In one of our divisions, we saw them approve 90% of requests that came in. 75% of their workforce asked for something. So combined now with what they had on remote before, we know about 30 to 40% will be remote, fully remote. So slightly higher than we were pre-pandemic. And the rest pretty much all requested intermittent, so that 2 or 3 days in the office. But I think, and the other thing we did, back to my soup versus bread analogy, is we said, okay, this is approval for when we return, and then for only 6 months at a time. So that if it doesn't work, we haven't locked the business or employees into something. And again, because I think managing expectations right now is really important.
Indeed. And I love that you have the data on the preferences of your people. I think like Antonio as well, right? Through your Explore survey, you also have these employee preferences on their ways of working, which I think is really powerful. So anything else you have that you'd like to share, Antonio, on your Explore survey? And then would also like to ask you to share a bit about your CARE survey, as some questions have come in around sort of mental toughness and resilience specifically. And I know at Takeda, you have a focus on mental and physical health as well. And I think some practical advice there would be appreciated by our audience.
Yeah, definitely. And if we take the two buckets together, yes, definitely the most resonating word, if I look at the Explore, is hybrid and flexibility, hybrid work and flexibility. That's the direction we are going. We are still in the development phase to understand what that will mean on a country level, on a team level. So that's the stage where we are, but it's quite clear that that's the direction we will go, and our people is also expecting us to go. If we look at the care side, definitely the main word and the main concept that stays is the mental and physical health, and that's where our focus is going in terms of effort and how to, as I said before, take care. And in the two things, I really like, again, as I said before, the analogy that Kathleen did before. So what is our present today will soon be our past. Hopefully, we all hope for that. That becomes the past. But we are learning a lot of lessons in this situation. And building on the 3 C's of Alain before, I can also think about within the coaching part, there is something that we have learned on the importance of the communication and the importance of the nuances of the communication, because all of a sudden we have experienced that our communication has become a bit flatter than before, because it's all in front of a screen, it's all out of a meeting. You don't have anymore the casual chat going out of the office, informally passing by the door of the office of your manager and just seeding an idea and see how he reacts or she reacts on the idea you have. So there are those nuances, and in Takeda, in TBS, we have tried to build on this, and we have launched several initiatives like daily adults, like water cooler meeting, like informal team meetings, like after work, very spontaneous for whoever wants to join, and that has proven being a really great example of simple things you can do that will really move the needle. And that's something that somehow we want to capture, whatever will be our way of working in the future. And that's what we are bringing from the CARE survey. As I was saying before, on the future of work, it's really asking ourselves the right question. And I'm really enjoying this conversation because I'm already having a lot of inputs also on the shelf life of the 6 months approach to see what's proven right. Because as we said before, we are exploring. We don't know. We can analyze the data, and gladly we have a lot as well, but it's not necessarily that we can make too many predictions. So flexibility needs to be the buzzword for the coming months for us, and especially in an organization that, as I was saying before, it's focusing on these 4 main capabilities for the future to still be on the cutting edge of our duties, I would say.
Perfect. And staying with you, Antonio, I think all of you have shared some really practical, fun things that you've done to engage the organization. So sticking with you, can you just share a little bit about, Mount Everest and, some of the fun things you've done?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity. It resonates very well with the background of Kathleen. Yes, at a certain point, we recognized, as we probably all are doing, we are jumping from one meeting to another without even changing meeting room or office. So we are all staying a lot more time seated on a chair, in front of our desk. So we said, okay, why don't we try to do something? We all have in our headphones this application that counts our steps. And we took the analogy of climbing the Mount Everest, how many steps are from the base camp to the top of the Mount Everest. And we said, as a team, why don't we try to challenge ourselves? And we say, we will climb the Mount Everest in 1 month time, which is 15 million steps. By the way, it's not a small number. Gladly, we are a big team. And of course, it was spontaneous. No one was, of course, forced to join, but it had a great resonance within the organization. Everyone was posting on the internal social media that we have, picture of them during the weekend or after the workday, or even during the workday, taking call whilst walking on wherever they were. Of course, always respecting the local rules, wearing masks, being safe. If lockdown wouldn't allow, even tapirulan was allowed to be counted as a step, and we did it. We achieved the 15 million goals. And I remember the first time we spoke about this, we thought that's crazy. That's not going to happen. And actually we did. And the people started really using that as an example, which again, as I'm telling it, it's simple. It's not something necessarily that requires so much. And that's what we are also getting as a feedback, that sometimes really simple things have an impact that really we wouldn't have expected few months ago.
Super. I love that together you all climbed Mount Everest, and I love that you have meeting-free Fridays. I think that's astounding that you're creating space on people's calendars so that they can make time to get important things done and or to take care of themselves. So well done, you. Maryjo, I think you also have done some practical things to inject a bit of levity and a bit of fun as well.
Sure. So one of the things we did with our broader sort of incident management team that I chair, that's sort of heading our pandemic efforts, is we actually asked our events team to put together a lookbook of all virtual event vendors. And then shared that because the teams had collected a lot of good ideas, but that also allowed our events team to negotiate better rates and scale some of those services. And one that was in there we did ourselves as an HR team was a virtual magic show, which I was highly doubtful about. And we did it an our evening for our APAC teams, and it was a small group. We coupled that with a holiday costume competition. And you could see everyone's kids standing on the edge of their screen, like, what's mom or dad doing dressed up as some holiday figure around the world? And then it hit me like, wow, we should invite everyone's family. So the next day when we did it, we sent a note out that was like, anyone who's in your household wants to join in. And it was not only a hit because it was a great fun magic show, but for people to have their kids have a chance to see their screen and not be ashamed of that. People love that. They had their kids on their lap. I loved getting to see, kind of when grandparents were in the rooms. It was just great. And next up, because we've spent almost a year watching everyone's pets run through their screen, we're doing a virtual pet parade, and you can enter your pet with or without costume in our virtual pet parade.
I love it, a virtual pet parade. How fun. And we've done some virtual cooking classes together as well. And then we get to eat, something delicious as a benefit. So that's something that's been a big hit as well. So this all sort of speaks to the power of team resilience, right? And helping build that connectivity and the resilience in teams. And Kathleen, I know we were talking a bit about the power of team resilience and actually team resilience, being, even stronger than individual resilience. And that's something I know you're focused on at Avalara. Would you like to comment on that?
Sure. First, as I mentioned before, our CEO, Scott McFarland, starts every meeting with "How are you?" and encourages us and ends the meeting. Again, we're growing over double digits, but let's grow with empathy. So every meeting ends with "Take care of your teams, take care of you, take care of us." And so the focus really is on that empathetic leader. So I do think that the paradigm for leadership, if we've learned anything from this crisis, it's how to be kind to each other and to lead in a very different way. And I actually, I give a lot of salt to the article that one of your colleagues wrote about in the Harvard Business Review. It's an article that Mary Claire partnered with Keith Ferrazzi, again, another one of my favorite people and thought leaders, and talked about team resilience, how to build a more resilient team. It's your research, and I highly encourage anyone listening to this call to get that article, because it is really good thought leadership. And the 4 characteristics that come out of that are things that we've all been talking about. The most important thing that we've learned is that we can trust our teams. But while we can trust our teams from working remotely, we also have to be very honest with them, and candor does matter. Also, we've been very resourceful. Like you talked about, the pets are having fun and working in a very different way. We've all learned how to be more resourceful and find backgrounds for our pages, find remote work tools online, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had to do that. And I think at the crux of this are the remaining 2 criteria. One is compassion. How do you lead with compassion and empathy? And I think you've heard from this team and Alain that every company and every HR executive is doing this in a very different way that fits their culture and their needs of their employees. And lastly, humility. It really does matter. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, you know what, can you cover me? I've got to take my kids back to school, and it's really hard to do because you've got to stand in line. Or I've got to go get my vaccine. I'm off today. And for the organization to encourage that humility. So again, great research. I really applaud you for that article, as it will really be helpful to all of us as we return to the future and think about leadership.
Thanks for that, Kathleen. And I think one of the big ahas from that article that a lot of us have employed here internally to help foster this team resilience is that even if maybe empathy doesn't come naturally, to some folks or to some leaders, because it does feel like a more innate sort of behavior, you're either empathetic or you're not by nature for some folks. One of the practical tips that's in the article is just sort of starting off, team meetings with a quick temperature check, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, where's your energy level? How are you feeling and why? And that's just a way to build some connectedness and some empathy naturally, very practically. So just one idea to potentially consider for folks. We've had some great questions come in, and a couple of them are around the topic of performance management. How will the post-COVID life impact our thinking on individual performance reviews or performance management? And will we be assessing performance differently as a result? I think in prior conversations, Maryjo, this is something you at least have given some thought to, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that the case?
Sure. As part of our, healthy, safe and well, productive and connected strategy, we've really been sort of encouraging managers to go back to basics on performance management. And really sort of while we roll out the process and we say, hey, those check-ins are important, that development discussion is important, those formal feedback intersection points are important to really drive some rigor around the execution of, what's designed on paper and maybe in an average year is not so relevant because you are having those kind of intermittent in-person moments. Then the other thing is really making sure we've got clear metrics in jobs. And I think the nature of performance management will change, not so much because of the pandemic, but because of the world of AI, automation, and our ability just to have more insights and analytics on productivity of human capital will change as we go. But I think for right now, it's just back to the basics.
Super, thank you. Back to the basics. And Antonio, in the spirit of having you revisit the P's, there's a request to sort of have you articulate again those next generation capabilities to be future fit. And in doing so, has that caused you to reevaluate your performance management processes or how you evaluate what good looks like for Takeda employees?
Very nice question. Yes, we definitely have wrote and taught the four main future capabilities in so the four main capabilities in terms of future direction and what we want to build for long terms. It didn't have a direct impact into the performance management yet. It's more really seeding for the future rather than, so starting from the concept, first I want to teach you how to drive and then I will ask you to drive, no? So first you get the driving license and then you come to drive a car. So we are really investing on that direction in terms of skilling up our team and being ready and fit for future. It's definitely a very interesting, an interesting point in terms of connection with the performance management, which is more driven from leadership behaviors rather than necessarily the capability per se. It's definitely impacted the recruitment process in where we are, of course, looking for the next 2 to 3 steps every time we hire someone in our organization.
Okay, super. Thank you. And in the interest of time, I think perhaps just one last question, same question for all of you, maybe just a bit of a lightning round. So I'd love to go back to you, Alain, to kick us off. And if you could, I guess, take out your crystal ball and make, one prediction or one wish for the one thing, that we need to get right, the one wish that you have for the rest of the year this year for the Adecco group, what would it be?
I would say 2 wishes. One wish is that we have impact and positive impact in the post-COVID era regarding the transformation of the workforce, the reskilling, the upskilling. But even more relating to our purpose to make the future work for everyone, there is a big danger in this post-COVID era, is that we will increase tremendously the inequality. And we all need, and for sure a company like ours can be instrumental in this, we must make sure that we work on this and we deploy all kind of actions, programs, so that there is not a huge increase of inequality, because there will be skills inequality. That's the first one. But also with the office, I think everybody thinks about more freedom, hybrid work, and so on. But office is also an equalizer. Having people at the office means that everybody is working with the same type of infrastructure quality and so on. Mm-hmm. And not everybody can afford to have space at home, to have a very good infrastructure at home, can be productive, efficient at home, because the environment, the infrastructure is not a given for everybody. And this will provoke potentially also another type of inequality. Women. We see how many women are leaving the workforce. So there are many drivers right now of inequality, and we need to really work on that.
Yes, very fair point. Thank you for reminding us of that. I know we didn't get to talk a bit about that today, so thank you for that. Kathleen, your one wish for the rest of the year this year.
What Alain said really resonates with me. And when I think about what he is saying, we should all be mindful of 2 things. First, in HR, much of our life, our theme song really does fall the way of Janet Jackson's "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" Right? Every employee comes to us, asks us for something. It's all about what's in it for me. I hope we can learn that it's not what's in it for me, it's what's in it for us. So we change that view from a me first culture to a we first culture. That's number one. Number two, and as Alain absolutely very accurately pointed out, the social contract has changed. Unlike many of the pundits have said, gig work is here, we're going to be working in a gig economy, maybe in some industries, but certainly not all of ours. But the social contract really has changed. If you look at the different schematic of the workforce, from baby boomers to Generation Z to millennials, their wants and needs are very different. And that should form a foundation of also what you bring back into the workforce. And very much, too, that inequality is something that I think a lot about. We have many industries here in Seattle where you have very high-tech workers, and then you have warehouse workers in the same company. And the warehouse workers had to go back, but not necessarily some of the other high-tech. So how do you bring that equality back in the workforce? Because it does matter. We learned this year, not only that we could work from home, but that equality in the world really does matter. And our different inclusion groups need a voice, not only in the workplace, but at home. So I do worry about the number of women or people of color who may choose, hey, I want out. This isn't working for me anymore, so I'm going to be out. And if you are in a culture where coaching and training really matters, or FaceTime, if you work too remote, you could really hurt your career. So that's something that I hope we can all learn and try and course correct as we return to work.
Indeed, well said. Antonio, how about you?
Definitely quoting and echoing everything has been said so far. So it's even difficult to add more. So because it's absolutely 200% on the same page. On top of that, what I would say, let's say, thinking a little bit more at the next months in our organization, I would say, using two words I've already used, which are again, care and explore. Keep on caring about people, about our people, about the patient first and foremost, and having the patient in front and at the forefront of everything we do, and being able to deliver, because at the end of the day, everything we do in our daily jobs is to be sure that we can improve patients' lives. So keep on caring and being able to have this care and humanity in our way of working, and keep on exploring new way of working, future way of working, and find right solution, and being also agile and able to change when those that are proven not necessarily be the best, and at the end to deliver an exceptional people experience, because that's our ultimate goal as an HR function.
Yes, and Maryjo?
Ooh, left me for last. That's a hard spot. Here are my two gifts I'll give, and my gifts for the year and my gifts back to the audience and to you, Michelle. One is the gift of patience, not patience like Antonio just used, but patience. We're going to learn as much as we go back as we went out. And it's not going to be easy or always an even path. We saw that already with offices that reopened maybe too soon and then had to close. And I think, if you're on this phone, you're probably a very senior executive or leader in your company, and you expect yourselves to get it right the first time. Have a little patience with yourself and with all of us as we learn our way back to what will be the new normal. And then the second gift is hope. I think Alain was, and Kathleen and Antonio, inspirational, and it's almost a privilege to work in a big corporation right now. As much as we might sell our products, we sell hope, hope that we can make a difference for a better future for both our current employees and our future employees. And so my two last words would be patience and hope.
Oh, thank you, Maryjo. What a great way to end, on patience and hope. I love that. We are 2 minutes past time, so I would love to thank our panelists once again, Alain, Antonio, Maryjo, and Kathleen. And our audience, I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and that you have a few takeaways from it that you can take back into your organization. So I wish you all a great rest of your evening or day ahead, with grace and patience and hope. Take care, and hopefully talk to you again soon. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Everyone.
Aye.